Hi, so the latest reporting indicates that there may be a chance that Harvard is going to settle its lawsuit with Trump. Trump reportedly wants $500 million from them, which is more than the Columbia settlement. That was, I think, $300 million, much more than, I think, Pennsylvania, which didn't have any money damages at all in terms of a settlement. But there were less accusations against them of anti-Semitism there. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that Harvard's really caving? Does it mean that there's something to the Trump lawsuit? Spoiler, I don't think there's something to it. But let's discuss what it means about this reporting right now. Now, the Harvard Crimson, taking a pretty negative view of this, that's the student paper, we'll put that headline up for you, because they are, of course, concerned that the school is basically capitulating at this point. New York Times, we'll put up that headline for you. Takes a little bit more of a measured view of it. But let's dive into it a little bit and figure out what's really going on here. First, hit that subscribe button. We want you to help us, work with us, make us the biggest and best legal analysis and political analysis channel that there is. So if we take a look at these settlement talks that are going on, they're all confidential. In fact, Harvard actually hasn't made any public statement indicating that they're even interested in settlement right now. It's primarily probably being leaked by the Trump administration. Let's just talk for a moment about settlements, right? Because they are thought of as a form of admission of wrongdoing. It's kind of true in the sense of someone has to be worried about the risk of what they've done, because in civil suits, really, it's a cost-benefit risk analysis thing that they're going through. So here, Harvard is going to be weighing the costs, not just of losing, and I personally don't think they'd lose if they went to trial, but the cost of going forward through the discovery, having this thing drag on for a long time, while Trump is withholding federal funding from them, and can they get that turned on in the meantime? So a lot of this comes down to the summary judgment motion that has been pending, and there are oral arguments in that a couple weeks ago, and the judge has not yet rendered the decision there. So that's going to be an important point, because while that decision is pending, there is room on both sides to say, hey, let's settle this now before we know if we've lost on that point or not. Now, at oral argument, the Harvard lawyers made a really good point that the Trump administration doesn't have any good facts, is not following the law, is violating the First Amendment, and of course hurting people through cutting medical and scientific research. Now, from that summary, you would think, okay, this is a no-brainer, right? They should win. But it's important to understand this is not at the trial stage yet. We're way too early. It's at this position called summary judgment. Civil case, after this, there's going to be a lot more discovery, tons of documents, depositions that will be taken. But right now, the posture is summary judgment, which has a standard that says there can't be any material facts in dispute. And with no material facts in dispute, then you look at the law. Who wins from that? That's what the oral argument was about. That's what the hearing's about. Now, it's actually a tough standard to meet, but there's a lot of lawyering going on here, right? Because usually you say, oh, of course there are material facts in dispute. That's the whole point of the lawsuit. That's what the jury's going to decide. But many civil cases get resolved on the summary judgment standard because basically, for example, what Harvard wants to say here is that there are no facts in dispute. The government is discriminating against us based on First Amendment viewpoint discrimination. Number two, they have failed to follow the processes in Title VI, which is the discrimination claim that the Trump government is saying. And its actions of withholding grants of money have no rational basis, meaning there's no connection between withholding all of this grant money to any specific instance of anti-Semitism that the Trump administration alleges Harvard is guilty of doing. It kind of seems at first blush neither side can win on summary judgment in this case because lots of issues are in dispute factually. But what Harvard is doing here is they're reframing it as whether there was anti-Semitism or not doesn't matter, actually. What matters is right now, the Trump administration hasn't shown any connection between that allegation and this action of cutting all the funding. They're also saying, of course, Trump regime hasn't put forth any evidence about that right now. So it's really not in dispute that they have not put any evidence forward. Also, not in dispute that the Trump administration didn't follow the procedures under the Title VI civil rights law for showing discrimination. Because of that, again, that fact isn't in dispute. The Trump administration just tried to impose itself on Harvard, saying, we've decided that, you're guilty of doing this, without going through the actual steps involved. So think about the analogy here for what they're doing. They've shut down billions in medical and scientific research, hurting tons of people, including families who are engaged in there's a clinical trial to help kids who may have near fatal reactions to allergies. They're already in the trial. It's supposed to be 7 years, all being cut off, right? So if you think about that, imagine this analogy. Let's say there's a hospital and that there's a complaint that the hospital has staff that is, let's say, discriminating against women, they're anti-Semitic, they're racist. Do you order the hospital to stop providing medical care or diagnoses? That's the disconnect here, and that's why Harvard has such a strong argument that there's no rational connection between these alleged concerns over anti-Semitism. Just like the way the Trump administration wants to control public broadcasting, it's the same notion that they want to control Harvard's image, Harvard's thinking, if Harvard is considered to be too progressive. That was something that I covered last week in an appearance on CNN, and that was before the hearing. And I made the point that Harvard might just win on summary judgment because of these issues. Again, it's very early in the case. It's hard to know right now. But once the hearing occurred, it certainly seemed my prediction might have some validity because Judge Burroughs seemed very skeptical of the DOJ lawyer's arguments. Put up this headline from what she said. What she said to the lawyer was, what I'm wrestling with is this idea that the executive branch can decide what is discriminatory or racist, and then make these ad hoc decisions without any procedure around it. Now, note that the DOJ lawyer, singular, was rather unusual. There's only one lawyer present. I mean, maybe that's because most of the lawyers in that DOJ section that usually defends federal programs seem to have quit at this point. It's been really decimated. And the lawyer showing up to argue was not a career prosecutor at DOJ experienced in these kinds of cases, but a lawyer who served in Trump 1 in the White House and then as an aide to Josh Hawley, among other legal experiences. He is, however, a Harvard grad. In the meantime, after the hearing, before obviously any ruling, which doesn't happen, Trump's already posting all sorts of insults to the judge, talking about how she's a disgrace, that he doesn't even need to wait for the ruling. I mean, honestly, as a side note, we really should be sounding the alarm bells with legislators around the country about what is the cognitive scenario where a president says stuff like this. I mean, quote, she's a total disaster, which I say even before hearing her ruling. She has systematically taken over the Harvard cases and is an automatic loss for the people of the country. I mean, that can't be what we accept as the new normal for the president. We really have to just keep telling our representatives this does not make any sense at all. You can talk this way. Not to mention, obviously, he's trying to completely weigh in and cause bias about the case. So let's keep an eye on this. But remember, the idea for Harvard possibly settling here is the idea of avoiding this future that drags on and these billions in grants. I mean, if you're going to weigh 500 million potentially against billions in grants, the cost benefit may say we want to do that. It may get the Trump administration off their back. Keep in mind, all this reveals these standard weaknesses of the Trump administration's arguments. They don't want procedure. They want to make the decisions. They're becoming more and more bold in saying that they can discriminate based on viewpoint. And what's interesting about this reporting in the New York Times and the Harvard Crimson is that Trump is so focused on money, right? What's new? He wants the Harvard settlement to be more money than Columbia. And ask ourselves why. It's really just for show, right? Harvard's a big name to him. He wants to prove a point. They got to pay more. I want to show people that me, Trump, if you don't negotiate with me early, you're going to keep paying more and more. Again, no basis whatsoever, no connection to the actual allegations or facts in the case. It's all about his idea that he wants to show that he can make money this way. I mean, Lord knows where that money is going to go. It's money that's not put towards research that is very much needed to be done. But it reveals what kind of thinking is actually involved. And it's a difficult path for institutions like Harvard to navigate here. But again, they're not making any comment. I'm suspecting this is a leak from the Trump side, that there's some talk about this. And there's certain really lines in the sand that Harvard has drawn that they won't accept in terms of settlement agreement. But we'll keep an eye on that, because more and more, as there's pushback, like in the hearings, as there's pushback in the pleadings, more and more of the crassness and the weakness of the Trump arguments and motivations are being revealed all the time. And that's valuable for us. All right. Thanks for watching. Keep those replies and comments coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.